I'm not sure if they want to hear what I want to play, Johnny.
Who's they?
Oh, you know, the people who say what folk music is.
Well, F 'em. I want to hear it. Make some noise, BD.
Once upon a time, you looked so fine. Through the bumps of dime in your prime. Didn't you? People called, said beware dog.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Real Screen Team. I'm Andrew Thomas. I'm here with fellow Johnny Cash, Christopher Johnson.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
And we're here to finish the Mangold
Double
Biopic.
feature. Yep. With his most recent work, which I really enjoyed, A Complete Unknown.
Yep. But before that, give us a biography of Bob Dylan.
Okay, yep. Just like how we did with Johnny Cash, give you a brief rundown on the artist himself. Bob Dylan, born Robert Allen Zimmerman on May 24th, 1941, is an American folk and blues singer-songwriter described as one of the greatest songwriters of all time. Dylan has been a major figure in pop culture for nearly 70 years. Dylan added increasingly sophisticated and lyrical techniques to the folk music of the early 1960s, infusing it with the intellectualism of classic literature and poetry. His lyrics incorporated political, social, and philosophical influences, defying pop music conventions and appealing to the burgeoning counterculture, while also expanding commercial and creative boundaries in popular music when he controversially introduced electrically amplified rock instruments in his music, fusing folk with rock. Dylan is one of the best-selling musicians of all time, with an estimated 125 million records sold. He's won and has been presented numerous accolades, including an Academy Award, 10 Grammy Awards, a Golden Globe Award. He was presented, he was honored in the 1997 Kennedy Center Honors. He was given the National Medal of Art in 2009, the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And he was also given the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2016.
Yeah, my introduction was mainly through a guy from high school who was a big Bob Dylan fan. Yep, he liked all his music, although I was still more of a Beatles person, although I knew that he helped out with George Harrison, the concert for Bangladesh.
Well,
thing.
that, and he kind of influenced some of their music. I mean, look at the album Help,
Yeah.
With John Lennon's song, You Got to Hide Your Love Away.
Yeah.
That was inspired by Bob Dylan.
Yep. But before we get into the movie overview, make sure to find us on Facebook, The Real Screen Team. Where else?
You can also find us on Instagram, Reddit, TikTok, and Lemonade.
And make sure to like, comment, share our videos, and definitely subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Yes, as we're continuing to grow this 500 subscribers is our first goal.
All right, now you can get into the overview of the movie.
Okay. A Complete Unknown is a 2024 biographical musical drama film about the life and career of American singer-songwriter Bob Dylan. The film was directed by James Mangold with a screenplay written by Mangold and Jay Cooks, loosely based on the 2015 book Dylan Goes Electric by Elijah Wald. The film was produced by Searchlight Pictures. Veritas Entertainment Group, Whitewater, Range Media Partners, The Picture Company, and Turnpike Films, and distributed by Searchlight Pictures. The film's title is derived from the chorus of Bob Dylan's 1965 single, Like a Rolling Stone. You know?
Yeah.
To be on your own, like a complete unknown, like a rolling stone. The film stars Timothy Chalamet as Bob Dylan, alongside Edward Norton, Ellie Fanning, Monica Barbaro, Boyd Holbrook, Dan Fogel, Norbert Leo Butts, Eriko Hatsune, and Scoot McNairy. Named one of the top 10 films of 2024 by the American Film Institute and the National Board of Review, the latter which also awarded Fanning Best Supporting Actress. The film earned 8 nominations at the 97th Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Timothy Chalamet, Best Supporting Actor for Edward Norton, and Best Supporting Actress for Monica Barbaro. And 4 Screen Actors Guild Awards, with Chalamet winning Best Actor. Mm-hmm. And the synopsis. Mm-hmm. In the early 1960s, 19-year-old Bob Dylan arrives in New York with his guitar and revolutionary talent, destined to change the course of American music. Forming his most intimate relationships during his rise to fame, he grows restless with the folk movement, making a controversial choice that reverberates worldwide.
It was fine. It had some good parts. I prefer Walk the Line better.
I understand that. Mm. This film is a much more acquired taste because Bob Dylan is an enigma.
Yeah.
He's the type of individual you can't really read. Mm-hmm. Plus, he's what you would kind of consider an auteur. Mm-hmm. You know, he's the type of individual that marches to his own drum, and he is the type of individual that finds ways to reinvent himself. Mm-hmm. So there's never really a good way to kind of pinpoint who he is as an artist or really as a person.
Yeah.
There's an air. There's always been this kind of air of mystery to him. Mm-hmm. That's why I think it was probably for the best that they just focused on this period of time. Mm-hmm. For this film, rather than do kind of the quote-unquote cradle-to-grave type of idea for a biopic, yeah. Like with what we saw in Walk the Line,
yep.
Or what we have seen in Ray.
Yep.
You know, they chose this period from 1961 to 1965, you know, when Bob Dylan was starting his career and essentially blew up into being, one of the top selling artists in the world, to focus more on that, and also see how he was working on the music and everything rather than focus too much on his personal life.
Yep. But let's get to Bob Dylan himself.
Yeah. Bob Dylan, played by Timothy Chalamet. Chalamet did perfect.
Yeah, he did a good Bob Dylan impression.
I understand some people might think that he may have gotten too into Bob's way of talking.
Yep.
But I think he did a perfect job. He really did. He got Dylan down. And just like how, Austin Butler spent like a good couple years to get Elvis down, that's the same thing Timothy did with Bob. He truly engrossed himself into everything Bob Dylan, to the point that he got his mannerisms down, his way of speech, his way of singing, his way of playing the guitar, his movements when he performs. He got it all down. And just like Walk the Line, we're also dealing with another film where everyone actually sings their parts. But this one is slightly different. Instead of them recording things in studio and then, kind of performing it, on film but kind of dubbed over, all of the performances by everyone is done live. So what we are seeing is them truly, singing and playing in pretty much in a unique way that I don't think could be properly duplicated. If they did another take, it would be done completely differently. And I got to give them a great deal of credit on that, especially for Chalamet.
Yep. Of course, the movie portrays his back and forth with people and being a jerk to everyone.
Which I can kind of see that. Some people, if you just look at it in face value, you just kind of think that Bob is just a douchebag genius who becomes famous. But Bob is a unique individual that he's not so much of a people's person, really.
Yeah.
He is able to find connections with people through art, and at the same time, he does admit he has a bit of an ego himself. We
don't really get much into his backstory or with family or anything other than that he was in the circus
the carnival.
Yeah, the carnival with a brief scrapbook of him at the being at the carnival. That's about all we get of his backstory.
Yeah. And them acknowledging what his real name is, before he legally changed it to Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting thing because, he actually says in the film, that stuff doesn't even matter. People only tell you what you want them to know.
Yeah. So the big thing is, in the climax, who was he trying to prove to himself or to the people who were running the folk music that he was going to do?
Kind of a bit of both.
Yeah.
It's a bit of both. He didn't want to be chained down or pigeonholed to one thing. That's been a major thing for Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
He has never wanted to be pigeonholed or just set to one particular thing. That's why I call him an auteur. This man always invents himself. He always wants to try out something different, something new. Just like in the vein of people like David Bowie or Prince or others, Madonna, people that find influences from so many other different genres of music that they don't want to be just set to one thing. And that's what Bob wanted to show. That while he still has folk in his heart, he's not just a folk singer. And also with, I know how you were kind of seeing Bob. He's also the type of individual that he's rather guarded.
Yeah.
To the point that sometimes you kind of wonder what he's thinking. And I kind of like how Timothy kind of showed that there's probably a range of different things that he's thinking about that it's kind of intriguing of wondering, how is he feeling during this period?
Yeah.
There's probably a number of different things like swimming in his mind that you could it's kind of a choose your own adventure type of thing to think about it. Which that's so Dylan. But I guess do we get into the people he was closest to?
Yeah.
Now, do we go with his muses or his mentor?
His muses.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with Sylvie Rousseau, played by Ellie Fanning.
Yeah.
Now, Sylvie is a name change. She's actually based on Susie Rotolo, Dylan's girlfriend at the time. But Dylan and Mangold chose to change her name due to Rotolo's death in 2011 and her, being unable to sign off on, being portrayed in the film. So out of respect, name change, just have someone kind of represent who she was.
Yeah.
Which I give that a great deal of credit.
Yeah.
What did you think of Sylvie?
She was, first you thought she was like a church girl, but when he first meets her, then you find out that she's more of a political activist, and also sort of inspires him with his political music.
Oh yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
With her involvement in things like CORE, the Black Panther Party, which is crazy. Her getting involved in, civil rights, the counterculture, trying to work on efforts in community. She helped Bob have his political awakening.
Yeah.
That's the reason why with his music he started to get into the more political protest songs the songs that at one point he would say, pointing at you, the people that are causing the issues for everyone in society, type of songs. You know, she was definitely a big part in his life. Mm-hmm. You know, as a person and as an artist. Plus, she was an artist herself. Mm-hmm. She was a painter. So they definitely had a unique connection, but there was a bit of this kind of guarded type of feeling with Bob towards Sylvie.
Yeah.
You know, while she was an open book about herself, Bob not so much.
Yeah.
Which, that has been the thing about him, you know. He likes to have that air of mystery. And at the same time, you know, there's just been some things in his life that he doesn't really want to talk about. Mm-hmm. That's why there's a bit of that conflict with one another. But at the same time, he is still able to be himself around her.
Yeah.
Whether it's for good or for bad. Because
and they get on, they're on and off together when he decides to go sleep with his other muse when she's away.
Yeah, because she was gone for a while.
Yeah.
She was gone for a few months.
Yeah.
Plus, there are a number of other tumultuous things that they didn't bring up in the film that actually happened between Susie and Bob that I think they didn't want to kind of get too much into. Yeah. Susie's family not really liking Bob, and also the fact...
Although that's referenced once with when one of them sees the carnival book.
Well, yeah. And also the fact of... they almost had a child, but they agreed to have an abortion. And that had a great effect on their relationship. Mm-hmm. That once that happened, that kind of ended their romantic relationship.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I think it was for the best they didn't go too much into that. I think that might have been a bit too heavy.
Yeah.
But
he just leaves when he's performing the folk music festival.
Which actually she wasn't there when Susie herself wasn't actually there when he did that performance.
Yeah.
They had already been like broken up.
Yeah.
But I do like how they represented their relationship. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, she really helped with one area of his, you know, ability as an artist.
Yep.
Now, his other muse, Joan Baez, played by Monica Barbaro. One, she was absolutely phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. She was Joan Baez. Yeah. She was Joan Baez. She had her voice down. She had her mannerisms down. She became Joan.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal. She was phenomenal. And I really enjoy the kind of how they portrayed Joan's relationship with Bob.
Yep.
You know, their professional relationship and their personal relationship, because you could see that there was a true kind of respect and kinship.
Yep.
And at the same time, you could see, like, if things were different, maybe they could have gone the long haul, but with Bob being the way he is and Joan wanting to do things her way, it wouldn't have worked out. Joan had affected Bob with, as far as his music with performing with others, because Bob and Joan actually did work a lot during that period of time, doing a lot of recordings, a lot of tours, that it kind of shows how he was able to collaborate with a lot of people in his career moving forward. You know, like having the band as his backing band for a while, or, you know, him ending up working with, you know, George Harrison, Roy Orbison, Jeff Lynne, and Tom Petty as the Traveling Wilburys. She kind of opened the door for him as far as, you know, what can we do as a collaboration? And at the same time, she also influenced, you know, his songs about personal relationships and connections. You know, just like how Sylvie influenced that. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, she was good. She was very beautiful, along with trying to also not understand what Bob's motives are, whether they get back with her or his climax songs at the folk music.
Well, like I said, Bob's a unique cat. You know, when they first hook up, it's because of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and no one is really sure how to react to it. And yeah, it does kind of show kind of how weird their relationship is, you know, initially, because of how Bob is, you know, as an artist, that he respects Joan, but at the same time, he is a little bit critical about her. And at the same time, she's a little bit critical about him. But that also shows, you know, that sort of kinship as artists. That they can see, you know, the positives and the negatives about each other, and how they can kind of meld that.
Yep.
But at the same time, it also feels like Bob kind of I don't want to say it like too bad, but maybe he kind of used her a little.
Yeah.
You know, in growing as an artist.
Yeah.
Joan herself has kind of said that.
Yeah.
And that actually kind of affected their relationship, you know, for quite a while.
Yeah.
It took some time for them to kind of reconcile, you know, after this period of time.
guess we go into the guys who
His mentor.
Yeah.
Pete Seeger, played by Edward Norton.
Yep.
I did not know Edward Norton could sing. He was fantastic.
Yep.
Playing Pete Seeger.
Yep.
Plus, on top of it, he learned how to play the banjo, and the banjo is not an easy instrument.
Yep. He also looked like pre-Mr. Rogers.
Yes. Kinda.
Yeah. And in the later years, he just wanted it to be a much more family-friendly event, which butt heads with Bob.
Yeah, because Pete was a traditionalist.
Yep.
When it came to his music. He truly believed in the folk movement, folk music. He cared about tradition, which is a voice and an instrument. And when he met Bob, he championed Bob as being the next big voice of folk music and the movement. He was a huge advocate for Bob.
Yeah.
And Pete helped guide him in that. But you also saw at the beginning how Bob categorized himself as not being just a folk singer.
Yeah.
He likes a whole bunch of different genres of music. Rock and roll, gospel, blues. He's not just one artist, and that becomes a bit more tension, once Bob is starting to reinvent himself with bringing in electric instruments into folk.
Yeah.
And pretty much changing his style of music and his whole presentation.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of that really there was a bit of that conflict around during the festival with that, but it wasn't so much what Bob was performing, it was more with the issues with the sound and mixing. Pete didn't want to sabotage Bob. He actually didn't hate what Bob's music was. He just didn't think that the sound was right. So,
yeah. Let's talk about his wife, which is also there.
Oh yes, Toshi Seeger, played by Eriko Hatsune.
Yeah, she was iffy when he introduced her and Bob into their home.
Yeah.
And it's never went away when he decided to reinvent himself.
But in a weird way, she kind of supported Bob in doing what he wanted.
Yeah.
Just like how she, supported Pete in what he was doing. Yeah. She felt as though people should do what they kind of want to do, with their dreams, ambitions, and whatnot. Pete was trying to push the idea of peace, unity, while Bob, he's trying to be a unique artist. He wants to be free of the shackles of being labeled as just one thing. And that's why I kind of like the fact that she stopped Pete from potentially cutting off Bob's performance. because she saw, yeah, Pete, what you're doing isn't right, and it almost kind of makes you look like a hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you kind of need that person closest to you to make you realize things like that.
Yep.
I mean, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Of course, also meet the guy that was dying in the hospital.
Oh, yes. Woody Guthrie.
Yeah.
Played by Scoot McNairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Woody was the first big folk music artist. Mm-hmm. You know, he was kind of the standing bearer of folk music that influenced Bob and Pete when they started their careers.
Yep.
I mean, that's why I enjoyed seeing Bob perform the song, Song for Woody.
Yep.
Which was one of the early songs Bob released once he was allowed to release original music.
Yep, and the actor, for what no dialogue he had, did great.
Oh, yeah. Especially having to portray Hutchinson's disease, which it's a very terrible and debilitating disease. It's just like ALS.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to give Scoot McNairy a great deal of credit with that.
Of course, yeah, the beginning of the movie, he starts with him visiting Woody, and the end he visits Woody at the end of the movie.
It's kind of, a so long farewell, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for influencing me.
Yeah.
But now I gotta go and do things my way.
Let's talk about his agents or the press tour or the other artists he met.
Well, first his manager, Albert Grossman, played by Dan Folger.
Yeah.
Very unique and kind of weird individual.
Yeah. Busting June's ball.
Yeah.
But liking Bob's work.
Yeah. Which I think kind of caused an additional kind of friction between Bob and Joan.
Yeah.
And at the same time, him also being an advocate for Bob, but supporting Bob's original works.
Yeah.
While initially the label told Bob, gotta do covers of, the standard folk music stuff, Albert was a big pusher for Bob to finally get the opportunity to record his original stuff. And once Bob started to change his style, he was a big advocate for Bob as well. So, yeah, Albert was definitely a big influence for Bob in helping him grow as an artist. Another person was also Bob Newworth, played by Will Harrison.
Yeah.
He's another young artist, entering the scene, and he wants to help Bob in finding that new sound that he wants to make.
Like telling the people, don't stop the music during the climax. Don't turn it off. Whatever you do not listen to Pete.
And helps him find, some of those some of those other musicians and artists that would help Bob in making some of his iconic songs and albums, like Al Cooper, played by Charlie Tahan, the person who played the organ on Like a Rolling Stone. You have no idea how much of an influence Al Cooper has had in music. That man has done a lot. Or Mike Bloomfield, who was portrayed by Eli Brown. He was the guitarist for the whole Highway 61 Revisited album. He was a member of the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. And you remember Alan Lomax, played by Norbert Leo Butz, he kind of poo-pooed the Butterfield Blues Band because of the fact that they were electric. With Lomax, he was the folklorist and archivist of all folk music material, interviews and whatnot. He actually worked for the Library of Congress for a while, for folk. And he was an even bigger purist than Pete when it came to folk music. And for real, that fight between him and Grossman, that actually did happen. Maybe not to the degree that they showed, but they actually did have a fight where they were on the ground rolling. Maybe not knocking into stuff and whatnot, but they did have a fight. Yeah. Because Lomax was... He was a purist to the point that he wanted to cut Bob off. Yeah. And he was also kind of a snob about it too, because remember he also talked bad about Peter, Paul, and Mary. Yeah. They helped bring folk music into the general public, to help the normies get into folk music. And they did their own covers of some of Bob's stuff, along with making their own music like Puff the Magic Dragon.
Sooner or later we'll have to review Puff the Magic Dragon.
I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah. See how very 60s it was.
But another important person that I am so happy that they brought in, and Mangold had to find a way. We got Johnny Cash. This time played by Boyd Holbrook.
Who?
Hi, Boyd. Well, good to see you again.
With both his hands. His real hands.
Yes. And
I didn't know that was him. I knew it was Johnny Cash, but I didn't realize that was Boyd Holbrook.
I know, because he was a dead ringer for Johnny.
Yeah.
He looked and sounded just like Johnny. He looked and sounded more like Johnny than Joaquin did.
Yep. Yeah, felt like he was.
It was like, Mangold, did you find some way to clone Johnny Cash?
Along with him making reference to his other work. In the meanwhile,
also Johnny kind of being a bit more of the kind of levity or relief in the film, because this was Johnny around the time where he was still dealing with his issues. So he's a bit more wild, you know, compared to everyone else around.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how they showed his relationship with Bob because, yeah, they were pen pals for a while. Bob was a really big fan of Johnny.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Johnny did have an influence on some of Bob's music. I think that's kind of the reason why later on Bob did kind of dabble in country and gospel because of Johnny. And Johnny was a huge fan of Bob's writing, you know, and he also did his best in kind of helping Bob with dealing with fame, making sure that Bob didn't end up falling into the crack holes that Johnny fell in.
Yeah.
While Bob kind of dealt with the idea of fame much differently.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to be a celebrity. He didn't want people like fans, the music industry people, reporters, you know, becoming so intrusive into you know, his personal life. He just wanted to be an artist, a musician, a songwriter, a singer. He just wanted to do that. He just wanted people to recognize that. He did not want to, you know, he didn't want that side of fame. He just wanted recognition of his art and people to, you know, listen to and appreciate his art, not try to get close to him outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
But
then we mainly discuss most of the good,
yeah,
the performances, the good story.
all of them were fantastic. Plus, somehow, some way, James Mangold was able to sneak in the song "It Ain't Me, Babe." You know, we saw Johnny and June perform it and Walk the Line, and we see Bob and Joan perform it in this movie. I love callbacks. Now, as far as bad, there
wasn't really, except for Bob, except for maybe the trail of Bob. Maybe Bob out of behavior. Don't know.
See, that is, I wouldn't see that as that much of a bad or negative, because that's an honest portrayal of Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
That's an honest portrayal. I mean, yeah, Bob's not a people person.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever seen the footage of him during We Are the World, and how like kind of out of place and a little uncomfortable he was?
It's been a while since I've watched that video.
Yeah, hopefully we can show a little bit of that. Yeah, he's like, no, why am I here? Why are there so many people here? I want to go home. So, yeah, Bob kind of has that weird thing with people. It's not a personal thing, you know, with others. That's just how Bob is. Now, with his performance at the Newport Folk Festival when he went electric, that was a little bit over dramatic. While the audience was very split, with half of them being vocal of what is this? This ain't folk. No, why is there electric instruments? No, boo this man, boo. While others are like, oh, this is new, this is different. I'm kind of digging this. That was real. People yelling at Bob, calling him a sinner, a Judas, a sellout. That was real. But them throwing stuff at him, that didn't happen at the Newport Folk Festival. That didn't happen. That did happen at his world tour a year later, where one guy legit yelled at Bob and called him a Judas, and he was like, I don't believe you. I don't believe what you said. So, yeah, they did kind of over-dramatize that performance. Also, it kind of sucks that they did ignore Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they did have Nick Pupo portray Peter, Yarrow, and Stephen Carter Carlson portray Paul Stookie. You know, we did get to see Peter and Paul, though they had a very bit part. I wish they had kind of acknowledged Peter, Paul, and Mary with performing Bob's songs just like how they showed Joan performing his songs.
Yeah.
Both Joan and Peter, Paul, and Mary helped make Bob, make him rise to fame for doing covers of his songs. That's the reason why we saw him blow up into what he became, because people were like, these songs are good. Oh, these weren't written by Peter, Paul, and Mary or Joan. Who's this Bob Dylan? What are his other stuff? It would have been awesome if we had seen Peter, Paul, and Mary as well do that. But what you gonna do?
But when it gets to the scores,
Yeah.
I give this a 8 out of 10, just slightly lower from Walk the Line, because it was okay, but Mangold sort of lost his touch, like what he had from Walk the Line through Logan. He's just trying to get his back in touch to where he was post Indiana Jones,
And also with finding a new way to do the biopic, because things did kind of become a bit passe, or samey, especially when the satire movie Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, came out not long after Walk the Line, that kind of poked fun at the structure of the biopic. So, yeah, Mangold was trying to find a new way in doing this. For me, I give this an 8.5. I really enjoyed this film. I do like Walk the Line a little bit more. I do think that was a bit better. But I recognize the fact that these are two different films doing two types of biopics about two very distinct individuals. And he's trying to do them justice in their own unique way. So, yeah, he was able to truly dive into the life story of Johnny Cash. That was what he was focusing on. While here, he was mainly trying to focus on the art and work of Bob Dylan rather than truly the life story of Bob Dylan.
But before we go, we're done with biopics and we're back to superheroes again.
Yep. But this time it's going to be a very big and important topic. We are about to do a lot involving Superman.
Yep. And for DC with Smallville season 4, my first full season that I watched. That was my first season.
Oh, that was the first one?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yep. And then, of course, the Christopher Reeve movies. We'll see how many we can get on there. And then the current Superman movie.
Depending on time.
Yep. But you want to roll us out?
Well, sure. Well, thank you all for watching. Definitely come back and watch us again. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, and click the post notification bell if you're already subscribed. Well, cut, print, that's a wrap.
Once upon a time, you looked so fine through the bump.